This is craziest HOA moments. The complaint stack was identical, and that was the point. I am calling the board right now. Deborah Turner slapped her hand on the hood of my car, and I could see the tiny body camera clipped to her jacket bouncing as she leaned in. The towing tag fluttered under my wiper blade, still fresh enough that the adhesive was sticky. I had been home all morning. My mail route does not start until noon, and I park in my own driveway in Riverstone Meadows Association, Syracuse, New York. The tag had not been there an hour ago when I left to grab coffee. She jabbed her finger at the tag. You were cited at 7:42 this morning for encroaching on common area asphalt. The tow company has discretion to remove vehicles after 24 hours if the owner does not respond. I was not encroaching on anything. My rear bumper is a foot inside my property line. I measured it last year after the first complaint. Deborah pulled a laminated policy sheet from her jacket pocket and waved it like a warrant. The amended guidelines state any portion of a vehicle within 6 inches of the edge line is subject to relocation fees. You signed acknowledgement of all rule updates. I never signed anything about 6 inches. I receive every notice, Deborah. I am a postal carrier. I hear all the gossip, and I know when rules change overnight to fit a specific target. This is selective enforcement, and the timing is too perfect. She clicked the tiny clicker counter in her hand once, like she was keeping score. If you make me repeat myself, it gets more expensive. The fine starts at $150. If you appeal and lose, it doubles. If you go to a hearing, we add processing fees. I need to see the security footage. The gate camera covers this section of the street. If I was cited at 7:42, the footage will show my car was parked legally. Deborah clicked her counter again. The retention window is 72 hours. You are already past the window. I checked this morning. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app. I have emails from last year when I requested footage for a different dispute. The retention policy was 30 days back then. I still have the PDF you sent. Her face tightened. That was a different vendor. We switched management companies in October. The new contract has shorter retention to save costs. Then, I want a copy of the new contract and the board resolution authorizing the change. She clicked the counter a third time. You can submit a records request. Processing takes up to 10 business days per the bylaws. The tow company will not wait that long. A gate technician with a tool bag walked up the sidewalk, slowing as he heard Deborah's voice rising. He glanced at the laminated sheet in her hand, then at me, then kept walking without a word. I made a mental note to catch him later. I opened my camera roll and scrolled back to this morning. I have my own doorbell footage. It shows my car at 7:15, parked exactly where it is now. The bumper is not over any line. Deborah leaned in, and I could smell the coffee on her breath. Doorbell cameras are not admissible for HOA enforcement. Only gate system footage qualifies as official records. That is not in the rules. I have read every page of the CC&Rs twice. She smiled, thin and sharp. The Compliance Committee clarified that policy in March. It was in the newsletter. I did not get a newsletter in March. Then you should check your spam folder. She turned and walked back toward her own driveway 3 houses down, clicking the counter as she went. I stood there with the towing tag in my hand, feeling the weight of something bigger than a parking violation. Deborah Turner is the Riverstone Meadows treasurer, and she has been on the board for 6 years. I moved here 2 years ago because the mortgage was reasonable and the neighborhood looked quiet. What I did not know was that certain homes get special treatment, and everyone knows it. Deborah's driveway has a basketball hoop that has been up for 4 years, which violates the portable equipment rule. Her neighbor has a flagpole taller than the height limit. But my car, parked legally in my own driveway, gets a tow tag within an hour of some invisible citation window. I went inside and pulled the evidence binder from my desk. It is a 3-inch D-ring binder with tabbed sections for every HOA interaction I have had since I moved in. I started keeping it after the first violation notice, which accused me of leaving trash cans visible from the street on a non-collection day. The photo they attached showed my cans at 6 in the morning on collection day. I had the waste company confirm pickup was at 7. The board admitted the error but never apologized. The binder has copies of every email, every notice, every rule sheet, every meeting minute I could find. I flipped to the section labeled Security Footage Retention. The email from last year was still there, printed and highlighted. Retention period is 30 days from the date of recording per the vendor service agreement. Below that, I had a second email from March of last year, also confirming 30 days. I took a photo of both emails and sent them to my ally, a notary named Kim, who lives 4 blocks away. Kim is not part of the HOA drama, but she has helped me organize sworn statements before when I filed a complaint about the landscaping vendor double billing. She texted back within 2 minutes. If they change the retention policy, they need board approval and notice to all owners. Check the meeting minutes. I opened my laptop and logged into the Riverstone Meadows homeowner portal. The meeting minutes archive goes back 5 years, but only if you know where to look. The portal was redesigned last fall, and half the old links are broken. I clicked through to the Documents tab and downloaded every meeting packet from October to now. The October meeting minutes mentioned a vendor transition for security and gate management, but there was no resolution about footage retention. November had nothing. December had a note about reviewing cost-saving measures, but no specifics. January mentioned policy updates, but the attachment was missing. February had a placeholder line that said additional amendments under review. March had nothing. I clicked back to January and opened the agenda packet. The line about policy updates referenced attachment C, which was not in the PDF. I checked the file size. The packet was only 400 kilobytes. A full packet with attachments is usually 2 or 3 megabytes. I called the management company and got the after-hours voicemail. I left a message asking for the missing attachment from the January meeting and requesting a copy of the current security footage retention policy. Then I called Kim. She picked up on the second ring. What did you find? The meeting minutes reference a policy update, but the attachment is missing. Deborah is saying the retention window is 72 hours now, but there is no board resolution authorizing it. Kim paused. If they implemented a policy change without a vote, that is a governance violation. You can challenge any enforcement action that relies on it. I need the footage first. If I can prove my car was parked legally, the whole thing falls apart. Do you have the old vendor contact info? I flipped through the binder and found the service agreement from last year. The vendor was a company called Secure Now based in Rochester. I called their main line and got a rep who sounded bored. I explained the situation. I need footage from a camera at Riverstone Meadows in Syracuse. The date would be this morning, around 7:30. The rep clicked through something on his end. We do not service that property anymore. Contract ended in September. Do you still have archived footage? We keep archives for 6 months after contract termination, but access requires authorization from the property management company or the board. What if I am the homeowner requesting footage of my own property? You would need to submit a formal request through the HOA. We cannot release directly to residents. I thanked him and hung up. Deborah was counting on the footage being gone. If the vendor switched and the retention window shrank, any evidence from this morning would vanish in 3 days. But the old vendor still had archives, and if I could get authorization, I might be able to pull footage that contradicts her entire story. I opened my email and drafted a records request to the Riverstone Meadows board. I want copies of all meeting minutes and attachments from October to present, the current security footage retention policy, the vendor service agreement with the new security company, and gate camera footage from this morning between 7 and 8. I cited the New York property law section that allows homeowners to inspect association records. I sent it to the management company email and copied Deborah. She replied in 4 minutes. Your request has been received. Processing time is 10 business days per the bylaws. Please remit the $50 records processing fee to the management office. I texted Kim a screenshot. She is stalling. 10 business days puts me past the tow window and past the footage retention window. Kim replied, file an emergency motion with the board. Cite imminent harm. If the tow company acts before you get the records, you lose your car and the fees. I drafted a second email. I am filing an emergency records request due to imminent enforcement action. The cited violation is disputed, and the evidence required to resolve the dispute will be destroyed within 72 hours per your stated retention policy. I am requesting immediate access to the footage in the vendor contract. I am also requesting an emergency hearing to stay any tow action until the dispute is resolved. I sent it and sat back. Deborah replied in 6 minutes. Emergency hearings require a quorum of the board. The next scheduled meeting is in 3 weeks. You may submit your dispute in writing for consideration at that time. I called Kim. She is blocking me at every step. Kim's voice was calm but sharp. Then you go around her. Who else is on the board? I pulled up the HOA website. The board has 5 members. Deborah is treasurer. The president is a guy named Ron who works from home and barely responds to emails. The secretary is a woman named Linda who has been on the board for 10 years and never votes against Deborah. The 2 at-large members are newer, a couple named Mark and Jennifer who moved in last year. Kim said, contact Mark and Jennifer directly. If they do not know Deborah is playing games, they might authorize the records release on their own. I looked up Mark's email in the directory and sent a short message. I am requesting emergency access to gate footage to dispute a towing citation. The treasurer is requiring a 10-day wait, but the footage will be deleted in 72 hours. Can you help authorize immediate access? Mark replied in 20 minutes. I forwarded your request to the president. This should be handled through normal channels. I called Ron's cell. It went to voicemail. I left a message explaining the situation and asking for an emergency authorization. Then I texted him. He did not reply. The management office closes at 5, and it was already 4:15. I grabbed my keys and drove to the office, which is in a strip mall on the north side of Syracuse. The office is a single room with 2 desks and a file cabinet. The manager, a woman named Carla, was packing up her laptop when I walked in. I need to file a records request and I need it processed today. Carla looked up, already annoyed. We close in 10 minutes. Requests take 10 business days. I handed her a printed copy of my email. This is an emergency request. The evidence I need will be destroyed in 72 hours, and the HOA is threatening to tow my car before I can access it. She skimmed the page. You need board authorization for emergency processing. I need you to contact the board right now and get that authorization. I am standing here. You can call them. Carla sighed and picked up her phone. She called Ron. No answer. She called Deborah. Deborah picked up on the first ring. Carla put it on speaker. Hi, Deborah. I have a homeowner here requesting emergency records access for a towing dispute. Deborah's voice was smooth. That request was already denied. He can wait for the normal processing window. Carla glanced at me, and I could see she wanted to end the call and leave. I leaned closer to the phone. The retention policy Deborah is citing was never approved by the board. I have emails proving the old policy was 30 days. If the policy changed, I have a right to see the resolution. Deborah clicked her counter in the background. The policy was updated as part of the vendor transition. It was included in the cost-saving measures we discussed at the December meeting. I pulled out my phone and opened the December minutes. There is no attachment. The minutes reference cost-saving measures but do not specify footage retention. Deborah paused for half a second. The details were discussed in executive session. Not all executive session notes are published. Executive sessions are for legal matters and personnel issues. Vendor contracts are not executive session material. Carla cut in. I need to close the office. If you want to continue this, you can file a formal complaint and we will address it at the next meeting. I am filing a formal complaint right now. I want it on the record that the treasurer is selectively enforcing a policy that was never approved, and she is blocking access to evidence that would prove the violation is false. Carla wrote something on a notepad. I will add it to the agenda for the next meeting. I need a hearing before the tow company acts. That means within 72 hours. Carla looked at Deborah's name on her phone screen. Deborah, can we schedule an emergency hearing? Deborah clicked her counter again. The bylaws require 72 hours notice for any hearing. Even if we scheduled one today, it would not happen in time to stop the tow window. I kept my voice level. Then stay the tow action until the hearing. Deborah's voice sharpened. The HOA does not control the tow company. They operate independently based on the citations we issue. You issued the citation. You can withdraw it. I can fine you daily until you give up and you cry. That is what she said, and Carla flinched. I saw it. The line was so cold it landed like a slap. I looked at Carla. You heard that. She just admitted this is about forcing me to give up. Carla ended the call. I have to close the office. You can file a written complaint and we will review it. I already filed one. I want a copy of the complaint form with your signature showing you received it. She printed a blank complaint form and I filled it out on her desk. I wrote every detail, the tow tag, the footage retention discrepancy, the missing meeting attachments, Deborah's refusal to provide records, and the threat she just made. Carla signed the receipt and handed me a copy. I took a photo of it and texted it to Kim. When I got home, there was a second notice taped to my front door. It was printed on Riverstone Meadows letterhead with Deborah's signature at the bottom. Violation notice, unapproved exterior modification. Your driveway has visible oil staining that does not meet community appearance standards. Remediation required within 14 days. Failure to comply will result in a fine of $200 and daily penalties of $50. I looked at my driveway. There was a faint oil spot the size of a dinner plate near the garage door. It had been there when I moved in 2 years ago. I had never received a notice about it before. I took a photo of the notice and the oil spot and sent them to Kim. She called me immediately. She is retaliating. You filed a complaint, so she is stacking violations to bury you in fees. I know, but I kept my plan quiet. Because the HOA depends on controlling the narrative. I have something Deborah does not know about yet. Kim paused. What do you have? A neighbor's doorbell video showing Deborah trespassing at night near my property. It is from 3 weeks ago. She was walking around my driveway at 11 at night with a flashlight and a clipboard. I did not think much of it at the time, but now it makes sense. She was building a case. That is huge. If you can prove she was surveilling your property off hours to manufacture violations, it destroys her credibility. I am not using it yet. I need to wait for the right moment. If I show it too early, she will just deny it or claim she was doing routine inspections. I need to let her commit to her story first, and then I use it to trigger an internal audit and the board panics in real time. Kim was quiet for a second. You are playing a dangerous game. If she finds out you have that video, she will bury you in fines before you can use it. She will not find out. The neighbor who gave me the video does not talk to anyone on the board. I am keeping it locked until the hearing. When is the hearing? I do not have one yet, but I am going to force one. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to the full board, copying the management company. I am formally requesting an emergency hearing to dispute the towing citation and the oil stain violation. Both citations were issued without prior notice or warning, and both appear to be retaliatory following my records request. I am also requesting an independent review of the treasurer's enforcement actions over the past 12 months to determine if there is a pattern of selective enforcement. I cited the New York Not-for-Profit Corporation Law section that allows members to petition for a special meeting. I sent it and sat back. Ron replied first. Your request is noted. The board will discuss it at the next scheduled meeting. I replied immediately. The law allows 20% of homeowners to call a special meeting. I am circulating a petition. If I get the signatures, you are required to hold the meeting within 15 days. Deborah replied, petition requirements are outlined in the bylaws. You need notarized signatures and proof of good standing for each petitioner. Processing takes 10 business days. I already knew that. I had read the bylaws 4 times. But I also knew that most of the neighbors were tired of Deborah's enforcement games, and if I could get them to sign, the board would have to act. I printed 20 petition forms and walked the neighborhood. I started with the houses closest to mine. My next-door neighbor, a guy named Steve, signed immediately. She tried to fine me for parking my work truck in my own driveway. It is a plain white van. There is no company logo. But she said it counted as a commercial vehicle. I had to threaten to sue before she dropped it. The house on the other side signed. The house across the street signed. I worked my way down the block, and by the time the sun set, I had 12 signatures. I needed 15 for 20%. I knocked on a house 2 streets over, and a woman named Angela answered. She looked at the petition and shook her head. I cannot sign this. Deborah already told me if I support any complaints against the board, she will audit my landscaping for violations. That is witness intimidation. You should report that. Angela looked past me, like Deborah might be watching. I just want to stay out of it. I am sorry. I thanked her and moved on. The next house, a guy named Paul, signed without hesitation. She fined me $300 for putting my trash cans out the night before pickup. The rule says cans can be out after 6 p.m. I put mine out at 5:58. She had someone photograph them and claimed it was 5:45. I had to get my security camera footage to prove the time. I got 2 more signatures by 8 p.m. That put me at 15. I took the petition to Kim and she notarized every page. Then I scanned the whole packet and emailed it to the board with a cover letter. Per the bylaws, I am submitting a petition signed by 20% of homeowners requesting a special meeting to address enforcement concerns and governance violations. You are required to schedule the meeting within 15 days and provide notice to all homeowners. Deborah replied in 8 minutes. Petition received. Verification of signatures and good standing status will take 10 business days. Meeting will be scheduled after verification is complete. I forwarded her reply to Kim. She is stalling again. Kim sent back a link to the New York statute. The law says 15 days from receipt of a valid petition. She cannot add 10 business days for verification. That is a delay tactic. I replied to Deborah and copied the full board. The statute does not allow additional verification time. The 15-day clock starts when you receive the petition. If you do not schedule the meeting, I will file a complaint with the State Attorney General's office. Ron replied, "We will schedule the meeting. I will send a notice tomorrow." I did not hear anything the next day, or the day after. On the 3rd day, I got a notice from the tow company. Final warning, your vehicle is subject to immediate removal. Contact the HOA management office to resolve the citation before 5 p.m. today or towing fees will apply. I called the tow company. A dispatcher answered, and I explained that the citation was under dispute and the HOA had not provided the evidence I requested. The dispatcher sounded indifferent. We do not get involved in HOA disputes. If the citation stands, we tow. If you want to dispute it, talk to the HOA. The citation is false. I have proof. Then show the proof to the HOA. We are just the contractor. I hung up and called Carla at the management office. I need the gate footage. The tow company is threatening to act today. Your records request is still in processing. I cannot release anything without board authorization. I filed a petition for a special meeting. The board is required to respond. Carla sighed. I saw the petition. The board is reviewing it. The law says they have to schedule the meeting within 15 days. It has been 3 days and I have not seen a notice. I will follow up with Ron. I need you to stay the tow action until the meeting happens. I do not have authority to do that. You need to talk to Deborah. Deborah is the one issuing the citations. She is not going to stay her own enforcement action. Then you need to resolve this with the board. I hung up and texted Kim. They are going to tow my car today unless I can stop it. Kim replied, go to the police. If the citation is false and you can prove it, you can file a report for harassment. I drove to the Syracuse police substation and asked to speak to someone about an HOA dispute. The deputy at the desk, a young guy with a shaved head, listened to my summary and looked skeptical. This sounds like a civil matter. We do not usually get involved in HOA stuff. The HOA is threatening to tow my car based on a false citation. I have proof the car was parked legally, but they are refusing to provide the evidence I requested. That is harassment. Do you have documentation? I pulled out my evidence binder and showed him the emails, the tow tag, the footage retention policy discrepancy, and the doorbell video from this morning. He flipped through it and nodded slowly. This is detailed. You have everything time-stamped. I also have video of the treasurer trespassing on my property at night 3 weeks ago. She was surveilling my driveway to manufacture violations. The deputy looked up. Do you have that video with you? I pulled it up on my phone. The video showed Deborah walking up my driveway at 11 p.m. with a flashlight and a clipboard. She stopped near the garage door, crouched down, and took photos of the oil stain with her phone. Then she walked back to the street and stood there for a minute, writing on the clipboard. The deputy watched the whole clip. That is trespassing. Did you give her permission to be on your property? No. I did not even know she was there until my neighbor sent me the video last week. Why did your neighbor record this? They have a doorbell camera that covers part of my driveway. They saw her on the footage and thought it was weird, so they sent it to me. The deputy wrote something in his notepad. I can take a report for trespassing, but it is a violation, not a crime. The most we can do is send her a warning. What about the harassment? If she is using her position in the HOA to target you, that is still a civil matter. You would need to pursue it through the HOA or the courts. Can you at least document this? If I end up in court, I want a record that I reported it. He nodded. I will file a report. Give me your contact info and I will email you a copy. I filled out the paperwork and left. It was already 4:30 and the management office closed at 5. I drove straight there and walked in. Carla was on the phone. She held up one finger and I waited. When she hung up, I leaned on the desk. I just filed a police report for trespassing and harassment. The treasurer was on my property at 11 p.m. 3 weeks ago surveilling my driveway to build a violation case. I have video proof. If the tow company acts on a citation that was manufactured through illegal surveillance, I will sue the HOA and the tow company for wrongful towing. Carla stared at me. You filed a police report? Yes. I also have doorbell footage proving my car was parked legally this morning. The citation is false. If you allow the tow to proceed, you are enabling fraud. She picked up her phone and called Deborah. Deborah answered immediately. Carla put it on speaker. He is here. He says he has video of you on his property at night. Deborah's voice was ice. I was conducting a routine compliance inspection. Board members have access to common areas and exterior property for enforcement purposes. My driveway is not a common area. You were trespassing. Deborah clicked her counter in the background. Your driveway is visible from the street. I was standing on the sidewalk. The video shows you walking up my driveway and crouching next to my garage door. That is not the sidewalk. Deborah paused. I need to see this video. You will see it at the hearing, which you are required to schedule within 15 days of receiving my petition. Carla cut in. Deborah, he is threatening to sue if we tow his car. Do we have authorization to stay the tow action? Deborah clicked her counter twice. The citation stands. If he wants to dispute it, he can file a formal appeal and wait for the hearing. The tow company operates independently. I leaned closer to the phone. I already filed an appeal. I filed a records request. I filed a petition for a special meeting. You are blocking every avenue. And now I have proof you are building a false case. If you do not stay the tow action, I will take this to the state attorney general and the local news. Deborah hung up. Carla looked at me. I cannot stop the tow company. You need to move your car. Where am I supposed to park it? This is my driveway. Park it on the street. Or in a guest spot. The guest spots require a permit, and Deborah controls the permits. Then move it off the property until this is resolved. I left the office and called Kim. I need to move my car before they tow it. Can I park in your driveway? Kim said yes, and I drove over and left the car there. Then I walked back to my house and waited. The special meeting notice came 2 days later. It was scheduled for the following Thursday at 7 p.m. in the clubhouse. The agenda had one item: homeowner concerns regarding enforcement and governance. I emailed the board and requested time to present evidence. Ron replied and said I would have 10 minutes. I spent the next week organizing my presentation. I printed copies of the footage retention emails, the meeting minutes with the missing attachment, the tow citation, the oil stain notice, the police report, and stills from the doorbell video showing Deborah on my property. I put everything in a second binder, tabbed and labeled. Kim helped me draft a timeline and a summary of each violation. If you are enjoying this, hit the like button and subscribe for more HOA revenge stories. The night of the meeting, I arrived early. The clubhouse was a single-room building with folding chairs and a fold-out table at the front. About 30 homeowners were already there, most of them standing in clusters and talking. Deborah was at the table with Ron, Linda, Mark, and Jennifer. She had her laptop open and her tiny clicker counter sitting next to her notepad. Ron called the meeting to order at 7. He read the agenda and asked if there were any preliminary motions. Deborah raised her hand. I move that we limit public comment to 5 minutes per speaker to ensure the meeting does not run long. Mark seconded. Ron called for a vote. It passed 4-1, with Jennifer voting no. I stood. I requested 10 minutes. I have a significant amount of evidence to present. Ron looked uncomfortable. The motion passed. You have 5 minutes. Then, I am requesting the board allow me to submit written evidence for the record, and I am requesting the board review it in full before making any decision. Deborah clicked her counter. Written submissions can be filed with the management office for review at the next meeting. This is the meeting. You called it in response to my petition. You cannot defer my evidence to the next meeting. Ron cleared his throat. You can submit written evidence, but we are not making any decisions tonight. This is a discussion meeting. Then what is the point of the meeting? Ron shuffled his papers. We are here to listen to your concerns and determine next steps. I opened my binder and started. I am here to present evidence of selective enforcement, procedural violations, and harassment by the treasurer. On the morning of the towing citation, my car was parked legally in my driveway. I have doorbell footage proving this. The HOA claims the citation was issued based on gate camera footage, but the footage retention policy cited by the treasurer was never approved by the board. I requested copies of the board resolution authorizing the policy change, and no such resolution exists. Deborah interrupted. The policy change was part of the vendor transition. It was discussed in executive session. Executive sessions are for legal and personnel matters. Vendor contracts are operational and require a public vote. Deborah clicked her counter. The board has discretion to delegate operational decisions to the management company. Then, I want to see the delegation resolution. She clicked again. That information is available through a records request. I already filed a records request. You are requiring 10 business days to process it, which conveniently puts me past the tow window and the footage retention window. Ron held up his hand. Let him finish. I continued. I also received a violation notice for an oil stain on my driveway. The oil stain has been there for 2 years, and I have never received a notice about it before. The notice was issued one day after I filed a formal complaint about the towing citation. That is, retaliation. I also have video evidence showing the treasurer trespassing on my property at 11 p.m. 3 weeks ago to photograph the oil stain and build a case. Deborah stood. I was conducting a compliance inspection. Board members are authorized to inspect exterior property for violations. Not at 11 p.m., not without notice, and not by walking onto private property. The video clearly shows you on my driveway, not on the sidewalk. Deborah's face reddened. I was standing on the edge of the common area. The edge of the common area is the street. My driveway is private property. Ron cut in. Do you have this video with you? I pulled out my phone and played it on the screen. The room went quiet. Deborah watched with her arms crossed. When the video ended, Ron looked at her. Deborah, were you on his property? She clicked her counter. I was within the property boundaries as defined by the site plan. The driveway apron is common area. The driveway apron is the curb cut. The driveway itself is private. Deborah sat down. This is a distraction. The issue is whether the homeowner is in compliance with the rules. He is not. The oil stain violates appearance standards, and the vehicle encroachment violates parking standards. I held up the footage retention emails. The vehicle encroachment citation is based on footage that does not exist. You are claiming the retention window is 72 hours, but the old policy was 30 days and there is no record of a board vote changing it. You are also claiming my car was cited at 7:42 a.m., but my doorbell video shows it was parked legally at 7:15 and did not move. Deborah clicked her counter 3 times fast. Doorbell cameras are not admissible. According to who? Show me the rule. She opened her laptop and clicked through files. The compliance committee clarified that only gate system footage qualifies as official records. Homeowner-submitted video is not verified and cannot be authenticated. The compliance committee is you. You are the only member. You do not have authority to create admissibility rules. The board delegated compliance authority to the committee. Show me the delegation resolution. Ron held up both hands. This is getting off track. We are not here to litigate every rule. We are here to discuss whether there is a pattern of enforcement issues. There is a pattern. I stood and faced the room. How many people here have been cited for violations that appeared out of nowhere after they questioned the board? 6 hands went up. Steve, my next-door neighbor, stood. She fined me for a commercial vehicle that was a plain white van with no logo. When I asked to see the rule, she quoted a line about business use and claimed any vehicle used for work qualifies. I had to hire a lawyer to get it dropped. Another neighbor, a woman named Diane, stood. She fined me for holiday lights in January. The rule says lights must be removed by January 15th. I took them down on January 14th. She claimed I was required to remove them by the 10th and backdated the violation notice to make it look like I was late. Paul stood. She fined me for trash cans and used a photograph with the wrong timestamp to prove I was early. I had to pull my security footage to prove she was lying. Deborah clicked her counter rapidly. These are isolated incidents. Every case was resolved according to the bylaws. Every case was resolved after the homeowner spent money and time fighting false citations. That is not isolated. That is a pattern. Ron looked at Deborah. Do you have a response? Deborah stood and faced the room. I enforce the rules as written. If homeowners do not like the rules, they can petition to change them. But I will not apologize for holding people accountable. You are not holding people accountable. You are selectively targeting people who question you. I have records showing you have never cited your own street for violations, even though there are at least 4 visible rule breaches within 3 houses of you. Deborah's voice rose. That is defamatory. I enforce the rules equally. Then explain the basketball hoop. It has been in your neighbor's driveway for 4 years. The rule says portable equipment must be stored out of view when not in use. That is a different rule section. Portable equipment is defined as temporary items. A basketball hoop on a wheeled base is temporary. It is a permanent installation. It has wheels. Ron cut in. We are not going to debate basketball hoops. Let us move on. I held up the evidence binder. I am requesting the board conduct an independent audit of all enforcement actions over the past 12 months. I want every citation reviewed for consistency, every fine validated, and every policy change checked for proper authorization. If the board will not do it, I will file a complaint with the state attorney general. Deborah clicked her counter so many times it sounded like a drum roll. You do not have standing to request an audit. Only the board can authorize an audit. I have standing as a homeowner, and I have 20% of homeowners backing me. That is enough to call this meeting, and it is enough to demand accountability. Ron looked at Mark and Jennifer. What do you think? Mark hesitated. I think we should review the enforcement records. If there is a pattern, we need to address it. Jennifer nodded. I agree. This is a lot of documentation, and some of it is concerning. Linda, the secretary, spoke for the first time. I do not think we should second-guess the treasurer. She has been enforcing these rules for years. And that is the problem. She has been doing it for years without oversight. Ron sighed. I will ask the management company to compile a report on enforcement actions for the past year. We will review it at the next board meeting. When is the next board meeting? 3 weeks. That is not acceptable. I need a resolution now. The tow company is threatening to act, and I have already moved my car off the property to avoid fees. I should not have to disrupt my life because the treasurer is abusing her authority. Ron looked at Deborah. Can we stay the tow action until we review the enforcement records? Deborah clicked her counter. The tow company operates independently. I cannot control their actions. You issued the citation. You can withdraw it. She stood and picked up her laptop. I am not withdrawing anything. If the homeowner wants to dispute the citation, he can file a formal appeal and wait for a hearing. Until then, the citation stands. She walked out of the clubhouse, and the room erupted. Neighbors started shouting questions at Ron, and he held up his hands. We will reconvene in 3 weeks after we review the enforcement report. Meeting adjourned. I stayed after most people left and talked to Steve, Paul, and Diane. We need to organize. If we pool our evidence, we can build a case that forces the board to act. Steve nodded. I have emails and notices going back 2 years. She has changed rules mid-dispute at least 4 times. Paul said, I have security footage showing timestamps that contradict her citations. If we can show a pattern of false timestamps, that is fraud. Diane pulled out her phone. I have a group chat with about 15 homeowners who have all been fined in the past year. Most of them are too scared to complain because they think she will retaliate. I need you to get them to submit written statements. If we can get 10 or 15 people on the record, the board will not be able to ignore it. We met at Steve's house the next night and put together a packet. Each homeowner wrote a 1-page summary of their enforcement experience, including dates, citations, fees, and outcomes. Kim notarized each statement. By the end of the week, we had 17 signed statements. I compiled them into a master document with a cover letter and sent it to the full board. I am submitting sworn statements from 17 homeowners documenting a pattern of selective enforcement, procedural violations, and retaliation by the treasurer. The evidence shows that the treasurer has issued false citations, backdated notices, changed rules mid-dispute, and targeted homeowners who question her authority. I am requesting the board remove the treasurer from her enforcement role pending an independent investigation. Ron replied the next day, "We will review the statements at the next meeting." Deborah replied 2 minutes later, "These statements are inadmissible. They are not verified and do not meet evidentiary standards. They are notarized sworn statements. They are absolutely admissible." She did not reply. I spent the next 2 weeks gathering more evidence. I contacted the old security vendor and requested footage archives for the morning of the towing citation. The rep said they could not release footage without HOA authorization, but they could confirm whether footage existed. I asked them to send a letter to the board confirming that footage from that date was still in their archive and available upon request. The vendor sent the letter, and I forwarded it to the board. The old vendor confirms that footage from the morning of the citation still exists and is available. I am requesting the board authorize release of the footage so we can resolve this dispute. Ron replied, "I will discuss it with the board." Deborah replied, "The vendor is no longer under contract. We are not obligated to use their services. You are obligated to provide evidence for disputed citations. If the footage exists and proves the citation is false, you are required to obtain it." She did not reply. The night before the next board meeting, I got a call from a blocked number. I answered, and a woman's voice said, "This is Jennifer from the HOA board. I need to talk to you off the record." I stepped outside. "What is going on?" Jennifer lowered her voice. "Deborah offered to waive my landscaping fine if I vote against your audit request. She said if I support you, she will find other violations and fine me until I move. That is witness intimidation. You need to report that." "I am reporting it to you. I am not putting it in writing because I am afraid of what she will do. But I wanted you to know that she is trying to rig the vote." "Are you going to vote for the audit?" Jennifer hesitated. "I do not know. I am scared. If you vote against the audit, she wins. She will keep doing this to everyone." "I know, but I have 2 kids and a mortgage. I cannot afford a legal fight." "Then go on the record. Tell Ron what she said. If the board knows she is intimidating members, they will have to act." She hung up. I called Kim and told her what happened. "She is tampering with board members. That is a governance violation. You need to document this." I texted Jennifer and asked her to send me a written statement, even if it was just for my records. She did not reply. The board meeting was the next night. I arrived early and set up my evidence binder on the table. Ron called the meeting to order and read the agenda. The first item was the enforcement audit. Ron cleared his throat. We received the homeowner statements and reviewed them. The board has decided to engage an independent management consultant to review enforcement actions over the past year. The consultant will provide a report within 60 days. 60 days is too long. The evidence is already compiled. You can review it tonight. Ron shook his head. "This is a complex issue. We need a professional review." Deborah clicked her counter. "I support the consultant review. It will provide an objective analysis." I stood. A board member contacted me yesterday and told me the treasurer offered to waive her fine in exchange for voting against the audit. That is witness tampering. It is also proof that the treasurer knows her enforcement actions will not survive scrutiny. Deborah's face went pale, then red. "That is a lie. I have never offered to waive any fines in exchange for votes." "Then let us ask Jennifer." I looked at Jennifer. Did the treasurer contact you yesterday? Jennifer stared at the table and said nothing. Ron looked at Jennifer. Is this true? Jennifer did not look up. I do not want to be involved in this. You are involved. You are a board member. If the treasurer is intimidating you, you have a duty to report it. Jennifer stood and walked out of the room. Ron rubbed his face. This is getting out of hand. We need to table this discussion until we have more information. You have all the information you need. 17 homeowners have submitted sworn statements. A board member just walked out rather than answer a question about witness tampering. The old security vendor has confirmed that footage exists that would resolve the towing dispute. You have everything you need to act right now. Mark spoke up. I agree. We should authorize the footage release and review the statements tonight. If there is a problem, we need to fix it now, not in 60 days. Linda shook her head. We should not rush into anything. The consultant review is the right approach. Ron called for a vote on authorizing the footage release. Mark voted yes. Linda voted no. Jennifer was gone. Deborah voted no. Ron voted yes. The motion failed 2-2. I leaned on the table. You are protecting her. You know she is abusing her authority, and you are protecting her because it is easier than holding her accountable. Ron stood. This meeting is adjourned. I walked out and called Kim. They are not going to do anything. They voted down the footage release, and they are delaying the audit for 60 days. Kim was quiet for a second. Then you go over their heads. File a complaint with the management company's parent company. File a complaint with the state attorney general. File a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. Make enough noise that they cannot ignore it. I spent the weekend filing complaints. I sent a detailed letter to the management company's parent company outlining the enforcement abuses and the board's refusal to act. I filed a complaint with the New York Attorney General's office alleging violations of the not-for-profit corporation law. I filed a complaint with the local Better Business Bureau. I also sent a summary to the Syracuse newspaper's investigative team with copies of the evidence. The newspaper reporter called me on Monday. I read your complaint. This is pretty detailed. Do you have documentation? I have everything. Emails, meeting minutes, sworn statements, video evidence. I can send you the whole packet. I am interested. Can we meet this week? We met on Wednesday at a coffee shop, and I walked him through the timeline. He took notes and asked questions. At the end, he said, "This is a good story. HOA enforcement abuse is a common problem, but most people do not have this level of documentation. I am going to pitch it to my editor." The story ran the following Sunday. It was a full-page feature with the headline, HOA enforcement or harassment. Syracuse homeowners say treasurer abused authority. The article included quotes from me, Steve, Paul, and Diane. It included excerpts from the sworn statements. It included a summary of the towing dispute and the footage retention discrepancy. It quoted Deborah saying, "I enforce the rules as written." The article also noted that the board declined to comment. The story went viral on the neighborhood Facebook group. Within 2 days, the HOA phone line was flooded with calls. Carla called me on Tuesday. The board wants to schedule an emergency meeting to discuss the newspaper article. When? Thursday night. I will be there. The emergency meeting was packed. More than 50 homeowners showed up, most of them standing because there were not enough chairs. Ron called the meeting to order and read a prepared statement. The board has reviewed the concerns raised in the recent newspaper article and in the homeowner complaints. We take these concerns seriously, and we are committed to ensuring fair and consistent enforcement. We have decided to immediately suspend all pending enforcement actions pending the completion of an independent audit. Deborah stood. I object. Suspending enforcement actions undermines the authority of the board and sends a message that rules do not matter. Ron ignored her. We are also implementing new procedures for enforcement, including a requirement that all citations be reviewed by at least 2 board members before being issued, and a requirement that all disputed citations be heard by an independent hearing officer. Deborah clicked her counter. This is a knee-jerk reaction to negative publicity. We do not need new procedures. We need homeowners to follow the rules. A neighbor in the back shouted, "We need a board that does not abuse the rules." The room erupted in applause. Deborah sat down, her face tight. Ron continued, "We are also terminating our relationship with the current towing vendor and soliciting bids for a new vendor with clearer accountability standards." I stood. "What about the footage? The old vendor confirmed the footage exists. Will you authorize its release?" Ron nodded. "Yes, I will contact the vendor tomorrow and request the footage." "What about the treasurer's enforcement authority? Will she still be issuing citations?" Ron looked at Deborah, then back at me. "The board will handle all enforcement decisions collectively going forward. The treasurer will not have unilateral authority." Deborah stood and grabbed her laptop. "This is a witch hunt. I have served this community for 6 years, and this is how you repay me. I resign." She walked out, and the room went silent for a beat. Then someone started clapping, and the applause spread until everyone was clapping. Ron adjourned the meeting, and I stayed to talk to Mark. "Is she really resigning?" Mark nodded. "She sent an email to the board an hour before the meeting. She is done." "What about the audit?" "We are still doing it. We hired a consultant, and they are starting next week." The consultant's report came back 6 weeks later. It was 30 pages long and documented a pattern of selective enforcement, procedural violations, and retaliatory fines. The report found that Deborah had issued citations to homeowners at a rate 3 times higher than the previous treasurer, and that nearly 40% of her citations were either withdrawn or overturned on appeal. The report also found that Deborah had failed to follow proper notice procedures in over half of the cases reviewed, and that she had changed rule interpretations mid-dispute in at least 12 cases. The board voted to refund all fines issued by Deborah over the past year that were found to be procedurally deficient. I got a check for $350 covering the towing citation and the oil stain notice. Steve got $200. Paul got $400. In total, the HOA refunded over $8,000 to 17 homeowners. The board also implemented a meeting vote requirement that all fines must be supported by clear evidence before being issued, which is exactly the kind of accountability that should have been in place from the start. That is the payback vector I fought for, and now it is official policy. The new procedures also included a rule that the treasurer is ordered to stop contacting homeowners directly about enforcement issues. All communications go through the management company now, with oversight from at least one other board member. 2 months later, I got a call from Carla. The board received a complaint from the old security vendor. They are threatening to sue the HOA for unpaid invoices. How much? $12,000. Deborah stopped paying them in September but never told the board. She claimed the vendor had breached the contract, but there is no documentation of any breach. Did she cancel the contract on her own? Yes. The vendor says she called them in August and told them the HOA was terminating the agreement. She never brought it to a board vote. That is a governance violation. She did not have authority to cancel a vendor contract without board approval. The board knows. They are voting to settle the vendor claim and pay the invoices. They are also considering legal action against Deborah for exceeding her authority. I hung up and called Kim. The audit exposed more than just selective enforcement. Deborah was acting like she owned the HOA. She canceled vendor contracts, blocked records requests, and intimidated board members. And the board let her do it for years. Kim said, "But they are fixing it now. That is what matters." The final piece came 3 months later. I got a letter from the management company. The board has completed its review of the cold case involving missing reserve fund transfers and altered meeting minutes from 2 years ago. The review found that the treasurer had redirected reserve funds to cover operating expenses without board authorization, and that she had altered meeting minutes to remove references to the transfers. The board has referred the matter to the district attorney's office for investigation. I called Kim. They found it. Deborah was stealing from the reserve fund. Kim exhaled. How much? $23,000 over 2 years. She was covering it up by altering the minutes and blocking access to the financial records. That is embezzlement. She is going to jail. Maybe. The DA has to decide whether to prosecute. The DA decided to prosecute 6 months later. Deborah was charged with grand larceny and falsifying business records. She pled guilty as part of a deal and was sentenced to probation and restitution. The HOA got the money back, and Deborah was banned from serving on any HOA board in New York. I kept the evidence binder on my desk as a reminder. I also kept the doorbell video, the one showing Deborah on my driveway at 11 p.m. I never had to use it in court because the audit and the DA investigation did the work. But I am glad I had it. It was the trump card that forced the board to take me seriously, and it was the proof I needed when everything else felt like it was slipping away. The funny thing is, Deborah quoted minutes all the time to justify her enforcement actions. She would cite section numbers and meeting dates like they were gospel. But when the audit reviewed those same minutes, they found discrepancies everywhere. Dates that did not match the agenda packets. Resolutions that were never voted on. Amendments that appeared in the minutes but not in the recordings. The actual minutes contradicted her on almost every major enforcement decision she made. That is the funny karma beat. She built her authority on meeting minutes, and the meeting minutes destroyed her. The neighborhood is quieter now. The new treasurer is a guy named Tom who sends polite emails and actually responds to questions. The board votes on everything, and enforcement actions go through a review process. I still get my mail route gossip, but it is mostly about who is selling and who is remodeling. No more late-night driveway surveillance. No more weaponized clipboards. Steve moved his work van back into his driveway. Paul puts his trash cans out at 5:58 p.m. without fear. Diane put up holiday lights and left them up until January 14th, exactly as the rule allows. And I park my car in my driveway every single day, exactly 1 foot inside my property line, with no citations and no tow tags. The oil stain is still there. I power washed it once, but it came back. I could seal the driveway, but I kind of like it now. It is a reminder that I fought back and won. The case is closed now, but I still get calls from other homeowners in other neighborhoods asking for advice. They send me their violation notices and their HOA bylaws, and I walk them through the same process I used. Document everything, gather evidence, find allies, and do not back down. Most of them do not have doorbell video of their treasurer trespassing at night, but they have emails and notices and timestamps, and that is usually enough. Kim still notarizes statements for me when neighbors need help. She says I should charge for consulting, but I do it for free. It is not about the money. It is about making sure people know they do not have to accept abuse just because someone has a title and a clicker counter. The tow company never came back. The HOA canceled the vendor relationship tied to the abuse, just like I wanted. The new vendor requires written authorization from 2 board members before they will tow anything, and they keep logs that are accessible to homeowners. It is a small thing, but it matters. I kept my job as a postal carrier. I still hear all the gossip, but now when people see me, they do not just talk about their mail. They ask about enforcement issues and board drama, and I tell them what I know. I am not a lawyer, but I know how to read bylaws, and I know how to spot selective enforcement. That is enough. The last time I saw Deborah was in the parking lot of the grocery store 6 months after her sentencing. She was getting into her car, and she saw me. She did not say anything. She just got in and drove away. I did not say anything either. There was nothing left to say. The Riverstone Meadows Association is still here, and so am I. The rules are still complicated and the meetings are still long, but the board is accountable now. They vote on everything. They document everything. And if someone tries to abuse the system, there are 17 homeowners with sworn statements and a newspaper reporter on speed dial ready to make noise. I still keep the evidence binder on my desk. I add to it sometimes when something feels off or when a new rule appears without explanation. I do not think I will ever need it again, but I am not taking chances. The HOA depends on controlling the narrative, and I am not giving them that power again. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.